Tor, the very best in science fiction and fantasy.
Hi, my name's Daniel Abraham. I'm the author of The Long Price Quartet, out from Tor Books, and today I'm talking with Melinda Snodgrass. Melinda Snodgrass, you may not recognize the name, but if you are a fan of Star Trek, you have almost certainly seen her work. She has a new book coming out from Tor called The Edge of Reason, and, well, we'll see what else is interesting to go. Hi, Melinda. Thanks for coming and playing.
Thank you for asking me.
So, first off, you worked at one point with Star Trek. You were in television. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did and how that came to pass?
I was a story editor on Star Trek. And the thing you have to understand about Hollywood is that if you have writer in your title, it means you're very, very low. And if you don't have writer, it means you're more powerful. And so I was sort of a just above writer, their staff writer, and I was a story editor on Star Trek. I owed that position to George R.R. Martin because he said if I would write a spec script, his agent, he would show it to his agent, and she showed it to Star Trek. And they bought the script, and they hired me for the show on the basis of that script.
And what script was that?
That was a script called The Measure of a Man, which was basically a recasting of the Dred Scott decision, which was the question of whether Data was a person or the property of Starfleet Command, because he is, after all, an android. And so that I was grateful to my legal background that I was able to find that kind of story and tell it in this new setting.
And what is your legal background? How did that?
I went through law school. My specialty was constitutional law. Can't make a living at it. Did corporate law for a few years. Hated being a lawyer. Love the law. Hate lawyers. And so I ultimately started writing. And have never looked back. I haven't practiced in years. I just make a living writing primarily.
Okay. And now I know that you're something of a fan of the new Battlestar Galactica. I know you've been following that. And since we've talked a little bit about Measure of Man, what exactly is your role in popularizing the term toaster?
Toasters, yes. Well, I did not originate it. That honor goes to Walter John Williams, who is one of our writers for the Wild Card series that I co-edit and have written for many years. And Walter first used the phrase toaster in reference to one of his characters, a modular man who is in fact an android, and his creator says, shut up and sit in the corner, you're just a toaster. And so when I was writing The Measure of a Man, it seemed to me that during the court hearing, the argument is that Data is no different than a toaster on the ship, and I actually use the phrase as well. And Ron Moore had eventually joined Star Trek as a staff writer and then a story editor. Actually, I think he came in a story editor. And I think that's where he picked it up, was from my script, The Measure of a Man, and has used it to very good effect, of course, in Battlestar Galactica. But he's the third generation of using that phrase.
Okay. Of the things you did with Star Trek and with television, more generally, first off, what of those do you think was the best thing you did? And what do you think you took from that back to writing prose, writing novels?
Well, I think The Measure of a Man is a good script with a great idea. It was very early in my career. I didn't really know how to write scripts very well, and I could do it better now because I know the craft better. In terms of a script that I think was probably one of the best scripts I ever wrote, was actually a script for a show called Reasonable Doubts. And it was a show about a Nazi war criminal and what had happened and how this comes out about his presence in the United States and all of that history. And I thought it was a very powerful script. I really probably like that one as one of my best scripts I've ever done. As for what I brought back to writing, when I joined Star Trek, I worked with some wonderful people, Ira Behr, Rick Manning, Hans Beimler, and they taught me a process called breaking the story, and which is very common in Hollywood, where you have a whiteboard or you have a corkboard with little 3x5 cards, and you plot the entire script, and you do it teaser through however many acts that particular show has, and you literally do scene by scene, so that you have this template and you know what the act outs are and you know what the big moments are and you know to write to them. And it occurred to me when I came back to New Mexico and wanted to get back into prose writing that this could be really very useful even in a prose setting, because you do have those high moments, or what I call the tentpole scenes, that are going to support that story, carry it forward, and it makes the energy work better if you're writing to those rather than just writing and hoping you find them as you get there. And you also need to really know where you're going so you have an end to your book and your story, and again, not trying to just discover it. Now, I know some people like to try to discover, and if that works for them, that's great, but I think sometimes you can just get lost and waste a tremendous amount of energy.
Fair enough. So the new project, the one that's just coming out from Tor, the one that's just come out, I guess, from Tor, The Edge of Reason, how to put it gently, courts controversy. You could say a courts controversy. What is the book? What is the book, and what did it what did it do for you as the next project? What does it do for you as the kind of the thing to put your name back on the bookshelves?
Well, it sort of grew over a long period of time, and I guess the thumbnail sketch, mine it's the story of the secret war between reason, science and rationality, and religion and superstition on one side. My editor, Patrick Nielsen Hayden, described it as the Left Behind series for rational people. But where it began was actually on New Year's Eve 1999. And I was sitting with friends in a Mexican restaurant, watching the television in the bar with the celebrations going on around the world. We were drinking margaritas. And yes, I know it wasn't really the 21st century because but everybody else was treated that way. And I remarked to the group, including Walter John Williams and Steve Gould and some of the others who were there, and I said, it's the dawn of the 21st century. Where's my air car? Where's my moon base? I was promised all this stuff, and we don't have it. And instead we have a culture where people are hiring pet psychics to tell them how their cat is feeling, and they believe in guardian angels, and we're still fighting the wars over evolution in public schools. What happened? We should be getting smarter, and it seemed like we were getting dumber in terms of what people were willing to believe and accept, and tarot cards, etc. So I thought that was an interesting idea, and then I thought, well, why? Why are we going backwards when we should be pushing forward to that new frontier? And it occurred to me that perhaps there was a force that was trying to encourage us in our worst tendencies, to make us gullible and to believe in fables rather than to believe in fact. And so I came up with an idea that every dark myth and every god you can name is in fact an alien being from a multiverse, alternate dimension is another way to put that have been trying to enter our world because they're attracted by intellect and by consciousness, and they feed on that. So the more religious wars we have, the more pogroms we have, the more fear we have, the tastier we are. And and religious wars are certainly a good way to get that going. And
then there is some ray of hope?
Yes. There is, in fact, an organization that has existed for literally thousands of years that is led by a mysterious figure in our time. This book is contemporary. It's set in New Mexico in present day. He is sort of a Howard Hughes, Bill Gates cross, but he's not human, and he has been trying to fight these creatures and keep them from killing these fledgling intelligent species that spring up through the universe. And in our culture, he has been known by many names. He's been Prometheus. He's been, of course, the serpent. He's, Satan. He's Loki. He's all of those trickster figures that also try to help humanity break free from the gods. And he recruits to help him a young police officer in New Mexico who has the ability to wield a weapon that this Promethean figure has made that can defeat these creatures and close these tears in our reality where they enter. But the strange thing about using this weapon is you have to have no scintilla of magic in your DNA at all. And in my universe, most humans have this touch of magic in the blood that's been bred into us because the creatures can feed on us more easily. But once in a while, you'll get someone with the recessives in just the right order, and they have no magic, and they can use the weapon.
And do you see this at some point, in the best of all possible worlds, say, returning to Hollywood, returning to the screen with this kind of process, or?
I actually don't think so.
Okay.
I would love it, but I think this one is too controversial. And despite all the screaming on the right about this, Hollywood is an extremely conservative place. I mean, if you look at all the movies, there is redemption. People do learn. They behave in the acceptable way. I just find it very funny that it's viewed as such a hotbed of liberalism because it's really very conservative town. I don't think this book, with its challenge to religions and all gods, is going to find a home out there. But I'm okay with that because there are other projects I can write for Hollywood.
Okay. Now, we talk about projects. One of the things, it's not particularly writing related, but it's something that I think many people realize about you when they come to your work. I think we can assume the average reader would come to you and understand perhaps this woman is a liberal. I don't know that they would then assume you were running an oil and gas company. How did you come to run a petroleum company on the side?
Yes, I am the member manager of Western Minerals and Oil, which is primarily a natural gas company, although we do make a little oil. My father was one of the founding members. There were 15 men who founded this company in '68, and the company has been a wonderful asset and has kept going. And about 5 years ago, I was asked to take over because my predecessor had become quite elderly, and I had been tagged in sort of memory of my father. I don't think they realized quite what they were getting. And so I took over the company, and I have found it wonderful and fascinating. I love the engineers. I love the work in the field, the understanding of how you find new sources of natural gas, the technology of it. More difficult has been the business side of it because, first of all, there are very few women who manage natural gas and oil companies, and it is filled with people who are, to put it mildly, very conservative, many of them from West Texas, and they find me startling. And when I took over, I went into the two employees. It's a very small company. The two employees I had, and my first announcement was, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I know nothing. I'm going to learn a lot. I hired this petroleum engineer as an advisor. And I said, but you must all know I am a liberal. So we will obey the environmental laws. We will meet the standards. We will try to do this with as much sensitivity into nature as we possibly can and still make money for my members. And we've been very successful with that. And in fact, I'm very proud to say we've increased production about fourfold since I took over the company.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're about out of time here, but Melinda Snodgrass, former lawyer, former story editor for Star Trek, present novelist, and force for good in the petroleum industry. Who knew? My name's Daniel Abraham. I'm the author of the Long Price Quartet books. This has been Melinda Snodgrass, and all you people in TV land out there, thank you for listening.